Welcome to our webinar. This is a webinar in our Youth Leadership webinar series, a holistic approach to collegiate recovery. Our presenters are Olivia Dale-Pape and Ella Wicks, and I will be moderating. I'll share more about our presenters in just a second, but I'm Shira Collings, the grant coordinator at the National Empowerment Center. This webinar was developed in part under a grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the Center for Mental Health Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or the Department of Health and Human Services. This webinar will be recorded and the recording will be posted to our website at power2u.org. And closed captioning is available for this webinar. So you can click on the CC or you can click more and then CC to view closed captioning. You can also view the entire transcript of the meeting by clicking on show transcript. And at the end of the webinar, there is going to be a Q&A session. You're invited to ask questions at any time through the chat function, and we'll do our best to answer all questions. If we don't answer your question, you're welcome to email us at info@power2u.org, and we'll do our best to get back to you. And you're also welcome to make comments using the chat function. But we may not have time to get to all of the questions, but we'll do our best. So now to introduce our presenters, Olivia Dale-Pape serves as director of the West Virginia University Collegiate Recovery Program. She's a founding member of the program and has been instrumental in its growth and development since 2015. Olivia is a passionate advocate for individuals in recovery from eating disorders, substance use disorders, and other mental and behavioral health concerns, and is committed to creating a culture of recovery at WVU. As part of her dedication to stigma reduction, she co-hosts regular Recovery Ally training courses and has trained more than 2,000 faculty, staff, students, and community members since August 2020. In 2022, she was selected as one of West Virginia's 40 under 40 leaders. Olivia holds a Master of Public Health and Social and Behavioral Sciences degree from West Virginia University. And Ella Wicks is a first-year graduate student in West Virginia University's Clinical Mental Health Counseling Master's Program. Hailing from Vienna, West Virginia, Ella has always had a passion for helping people and striving to make a difference in the community. She worked with the WVU Collegiate Recovery Program as an undergraduate and will be returning this semester to serve as a graduate assistant. Ella earned her bachelor's degree in mental health and addiction studies from West Virginia University in spring 2025. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing and I will turn it over to our presenters. Thanks so much, and I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation.
Thanks so much for having us, y'all. Is everyone able to see my screen here? Cool, good. All right. Well, thank you so much to Oryx and Shira for having us in the National Empowerment Center. Oryx and I met at a SAMHSA retreat in January, and Oryx and Olivia were sat at table 0. I don't know if you've ever been to a conference that has a table 0. I sure hadn't, but so we just made it table O for us. And I was so glad when they reached out to talk with us about giving a little presentation. So Shira already read our bios, so not much to do there, but I just let you know a little bit more about myself. So my name is Olivia Pape. I am the director of the WVU Collegiate Recovery Program, and I am one of the founding members. So I moved to West Virginia in 2015, and through a series of Kismet events that we may or may not get into later today, I happened to find a group at the university that was working to create a collegiate recovery program. So I have been in since day one. I've been the director since 2020, and I love this work. So I am a person who has been impacted by addiction and recovery since birth. I'm a recovery ally, and I am a person in long-term recovery from an eating disorder, and all of those are very important pieces of my identity. And Ella is here. Ella, if I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to say about yourself.
Well, just kind of reiterating that I'm Ella. I'm a grad student, first year grad student in the clinical mental health counseling program here at WVU. I'm excited to present to you today. And I myself am a person affected by someone in recovery or addiction, and I am a recovery ally.
Thanks, Ella. So Ella and I will be going back and forth a little bit on this presentation. We also are going to have ample opportunities for you, the audience, to engage with us, because I know no one wants to just be talked at for 90 minutes. And it's really helpful for us too to get some of your input and feedback. Feel free to put questions into the chat function, but we're going to ask you to have some specific engagement. So stay tuned for that. We hope to keep you enthused about our presentation. So just to run you down a quick, in a nutshell, what we are going to talk about today. So some things we're going to go over at a very broad, high arcing level, the evolving landscape of higher education, generational differences that we see, why that matters, defining and understanding recovery, the value of inclusive recovery services and where collegiate recovery comes in, and specifically looking at our collegiate recovery program here at West Virginia University, because we are not the experts on collegiate recovery writ large, but we are the experts on our specific program here at WVU. Building a strong culture of recovery, why that is important, how we do that, and then some time for questions and discussion. So very important to note, and I know that it was said in the intro of, the opinions in here may not express to everyone else's. The information ideas contained within our webinar presentation are representative of the presenters and of the WVU Collegiate Recovery Program. Collegiate recovery programs can and do look vastly different, just like recovery, just like someone's mental wellness, vastly different. We do not speak for all collegiate recovery programs. What works for us may not work for someone else, and it is not our job to police what they are doing. And our program is always evolving. So this is what our program looks like today, but it looked different 10 years ago, and it may look different in 10 years from now. We always reserve the right to be changing and growing. We are also not the experts on recovery, period. I'm going to talk with you about definitions of recovery, kind of the way that we look at it in, obviously, as you got from the title, in a holistic scope. But again, it is not one size fits all. We are not trying to create a hierarchy of this type of recovery is better than this type. This approach is better than this approach. Just very important to note, that is not the point of this presentation. Ella.
All right, so we're going to do a little activity here. If you don't mind, go ahead and put in the chat something you are proud of yourself for. This is going to be start your webinar right. So before we dive into some of the deeper things, go ahead and put one thing you're proud of yourself for. We like to start every single workday with a little gratitude and intention setting. We'll talk more about this later, but I can go ahead and start. Something I am proud of myself for today is keeping up with my schoolwork. So since I am a first year, it's been kind of a weird transition for me. So I'm very proud of myself for staying on top of things. Olivia, how about you?
Yes, something I am proud of myself for. Well, I had to give a presentation at a all hands meeting this morning I did not know about until the last minute. And I just took it all with a grain of salt and got through it. So yes, please go ahead and put something you're proud of yourself for in the chat. And we would love to just help you start your webinar right. So we'll give you all a minute. Going back to college, heck yeah, amazing. Yes, keeping up with schoolwork, second year of grad school, that's a big deal. Developing photography skills. A lot of the photos, most of the photos in our presentation were taken by our program coordinator, Andrew. So he's always developing his skills too. Working in a current job to help youth recover, yes. Communication with my partner, I love that. Persistence with things, focusing on my health. Helping a colleague, assisting a colleague. Proud of finding enjoyment throughout the day. Belleville, Illinois. I'm originally from Carbondale, Illinois. Maintaining my schedule, following my affirmations, exercising more, coaching basketball, doing my best for all my years, regardless of what it looks like at any given moment. Yes. 11 years as a person with lived experience. Amazing. Working with peers. Close on your first house. Congratulations. Building a mental health suicide awareness app. Wow. Staying focused and achieving goals. Going on a walk every day. Keeping my recovery during challenging times, trying to love all humankind. Thank you all so much for engaging with us. Like Ella said, we'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but we really try to start our days with that intentional gratitude setting, checking in, being with a win. So if you didn't get a chance yet to put one in, please feel free to keep popping them in and check out what your colleagues are proud of. It's always important to be practicing that. Someone is a great teammate on their rugby team. Incredible. Y'all have a lot to be proud of. All right. So as I mentioned in the start, kind of in our nutshell overview, we are going to talk very broadly about the landscape of higher ed. So I'm sure many of you work in higher ed, some of you do not, but I feel like if you saw the title of my presentation, you were like, oh yeah, interested in this. The landscape is constantly shifting. And, we know this, it's rapidly changing due to social dynamics, political pressures, novel technological advances, budgetary constraints and pressures, wants and needs of the student population. And it requires higher ed professionals and programs to maintain flexibility and act strategically. This is always going to be the case. And, like I said, our program, our Collegiate Recovery Program, is always evolving. In large part, that's because the wants and the needs and the requirements are always evolving. So I mentioned some of those things off the bat, and there's a lot of ways in which higher ed looks different today than it did a year ago, 10 years ago. But some of the specific things that we are focusing on when we look at the landscape is really the need of the student. So students not only have academic pressures always, but they're paired with mounting mental health concerns. And when Elle and I were talking earlier and practicing our webinar, the question kind of came up of, is it that there are more mental health concerns and challenges and stressors this day? Or is it that we are just talking about them more? I would be interested to know that, and I'm sure research can try to dig into that, but some of that we don't know. So in 2025, a big thing that we're seeing nationally is an increased focus on mental health of students, increased focus on dealing with stressors, wraparound wellness services, and changing results and survey results in terms of things like substance use, mental health, alcohol use, those sorts of things. So that's specifically what we are looking at, not to negate all these other important ways that higher ed is constantly evolving and in flux. So some trends related to alcohol use at current, or as current as I could get with my research. So 27.2% of young adults ages 19 to 30 engaged in binge drinking in 2023, which is a new historic low for this demographic. This information, my citations are at the bottom of the slides, but this is coming from the Monitoring the Future survey, which again denotes young persons as 19 to 30. So we're seeing a reduction, a historic low in binge drinking. We're also seeing the rise of the sober curious movement. Gen Z, on average, consumes roughly a third less beer and wine than previous generations. And this is a thing that I witness working with college students every day. At the start of our semester, I heard some of my students talking about watching on TikTok, people locally, saying we're trying to find substance-free things to do. People have all sorts of reasons as to why they are consuming less, why they are trying out dry January, no drink November, things like that. And it's really interesting to see some of this grow on social media and see these things in our culture being really embedded. So while these are positive trends and the overall numbers are down, experiencing a downtrend in this population, the rate of solitary drinking has increased in the past several years. And in large part, that is linked to COVID. Research demonstrates strong association between solitary consumption of alcohol and increased risk for alcohol use disorder and other alcohol-related problems. So these are just some very brief facts, but why I think they're important to highlight and why I pulled out these specific ones is that it shows there are some positive changes happening in terms of reduction in drinking, but there's also still a lot of problematic use, and we're seeing it pop up in different ways. So some trends related to other substances. Cannabis use among individuals 19 to 30 in 2023 remained near the highest levels ever recorded, which were 2021 and 2022. There was also in 2023, according to the Monitoring the Future survey, record high reported use of hallucinogens, which was 8.9% of young adults 19 to 30. And then on the flip side, according to the 2023 data, non-medical use of any prescription drug hit a record low of 7%. So again, one of the things that I really value about our program is we don't solely focus on the problem. We focus on there's a lot of solutions, there's a lot of good things happening, while not negating the importance of, we know that we're able to identify, here's some of these trends, here's some of the things that we need to work on. And then shifting a little bit, you know, we talked briefly about some of the changing trends are that mounting academic pressures are tied with mounting mental health concerns, stress, anxiety, depression. So in the Healthy Minds survey from 2023 to 2024, which is a college-based survey, 38% of respondents reported experiencing depression at any level. They broke it down into different levels, severe, moderate, but this was just at any level. 34% of college students reported experiencing anxiety. So those are things that are, you know, we're creeping up on half of our student populations. On a plus side that we saw in that survey is 59% of respondents reported no alcohol use in the 2 weeks prior to the survey. That's a very small snippet of time, but we look at that in a positive light. So again, this is a program about, or this is a presentation about holistic collegiate recovery. So you may be asking yourself, well, why does a recovery program care so much about loneliness and mental well-being? Why is that what we are talking about in terms of higher education trends? Well, I'd love to answer that for you. So loneliness has been deemed a public health crisis by the US Surgeon General. It negatively impacts mental, physical, and societal health. So individual, micro level, and macro level impacts. In 2023, we did the American College Health Association survey at WVU. And the results that we got from that survey were that 51.7% of our students identified as feeling lonely. So more than half of our students here at West Virginia University, which is on par with national trends, but looking at our specific population, more than half have said, I'm lonely, I feel lonely. Increased feelings of loneliness and isolation are high risk factors for problematic substance use and/or addiction. Studies also show that individuals dealing with addiction are more likely to experience loneliness than those living without addiction. Also a very important data point to understand. It is up to all of us on a campus community to help students build connections in safe and supportive environments. And I feel very strongly about this. So that's why we care about some of these metrics. And because we are a holistic program and we see, you know, trying to help someone deal with their feelings of loneliness or isolation, the positive impacts that it can have versus some of these negative consequences that we often see when someone is trying to deal with their loneliness and isolation and perhaps using negative coping skills. All my question pages have pictures of my cats, Mr. Noodles and Sprinkles, because you'll never see me do a presentation without them. So we have a couple of questions for the audience, and I would love for you to pop your thoughts into the chat. There's no right or wrong answers here. Yes, thank you so much. They're the greatest boys ever. There's no right or wrong answers here. You know, please keep this a non-judgmental space, but I would just really love to know, what are you seeing at your institution? We're talking about some of these different trends. Does this resonate with you? Do these trends, are you seeing these sorts of things? Are you seeing other things related to substance use, related to mental health, related to loneliness? And how are you addressing the needs and wants of your students today? So I would welcome you to put any thoughts about that in the chat. Studies that suggest loneliness is more deadly than smoking. Yes, yeah, absolutely. That is a huge point. Yes. So I would love to see some thoughts in the chat. I'll give you a second to think about them and look at the cute pictures of the kitties. But like I said, these are not the sole, higher ed is changing in so many ways constantly. But these are just some of the things that we pulled out that we do see on our college campus. And that we know colleagues are seeing as well. But I would just be interested if you work in higher ed, if you have a college student that you are close with, what are they seeing? What are they experiencing? I would say we definitely have seen over the last few years more students looking for those low cost or no cost substance free alternatives. Difficult for people to communicate with family and also keep up their education. Yes, meant to have connection with others. We are meant to have connection with others. Low student involvement in our program. Yes, and how to reach those. That's a very good point. Increase in youth and adult gambling. Yes, that is something that I think collegiate recovery programs are working to incorporate more into their programs. At WVU, we have a clinician in our counseling center who has a specialization in gambling and problem gambling, and they've been a real great lifeline for us. More tactics for dealing with mental health besides just using substances. Yes, absolutely. I hear more students regularly talking about things like seeking therapy, building their toolkit, perception of stigma and how to access resources. Yes, absolutely. While I like to think in my decade of doing this work, I have seen stigma reduction, it's still there. Yes, yeah. Students have told me that they have friends, but not close friends. So they don't feel seen for who they are completely. Yes, absolutely. That's a really powerful one. Feeling overwhelmed. School can become a higher priority than recovery very quickly without community. Yep. Mm-hmm. What they would like to do and finding events linking to those resources. Yes. Low student involvement when we have outreach events across campus. It's very hard. And I would say COVID did make a change. And what we saw for several years after, kind of the going home and the virtual was it was really hard to get students in person because we had become so used to like, I can just do everything from my couch. But what I am seeing on our college campus this semester specifically, and I started seeing it last year, was more students are itching for that connection. And we love to see that. All right. So I have another question for you, butted up right against that one. So we would love your thoughts about this. We're shifting gears a little bit. Here's Mr. Noodles and Sprinkles when they were tiny babies. So shifting gears a little bit, our next question is, what does recovery mean to you? What words or phrases come to mind when you think about recovery? If someone were asking you to define it, how might you define recovery? And again, no right or wrong answer. This is all subjective. Healing. Oh, I love it. A word that comes to mind with recovery is healing. What other words or phrases? What does recovery mean to you? And that doesn't have to be your lived experience. It can be as you understand it. Walking a path. I love that. I love that so much. Living a self-directed life. Yes, we've got that SAMHSA definition on lock for sure. Individualized journey to wellness, setting boundaries. Oh, that's such a good one. Growth, living a happy, fulfilling life, being connected to other people in satisfying ways. Oh, interesting. Medical recovery being an absence of symptoms and personal recovery being a presence of meaning. I love that. 1 second at a time, resilience, community, not a solo act, positive relationships, living my truth, processing instead of drowning. I am like snapshotting all this in my brain because these are wonderful. Finding purpose. Accept that setbacks are part of the process. Absolutely. Rest. Oh, that's so good. Emotional connection. Using coping skills and reaching out to support system when needed, stability in all areas of life. Live and have failures without guilt, learning self, sobriety. These are all such wonderful words, phrases, ideas, and I hope you all are able to see that there's such a wide variety of answers to this question. And that's what I was hoping to get at. So you all passed the test. Thank you so much. Okay, so someone mentioned in their self-directed life. So defining recovery through an inclusive lens. Luckily, this is a in part funded SAMHSA program. I'm not a SAMHSA employee. This just happens to be what we use for the definition of recovery. So I'm not, and again, I am not an expert on recovery as a whole. I don't claim to be. This is just speaking directly to what my program at West Virginia University, how we view recovery. So if you are not familiar with the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration working definition of recovery, get ready, it's going to be drilled into you. So they define recovery as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Whoop. Why does this definition work for us at Collegiate Recovery at West Virginia University? Because with this definition, recovery is seen as an ongoing dynamic process, not a destination. It's very important for me when I introduce myself, when I give recovery ally trainings, when I present to people, when I'm in certain spaces, I introduce myself as a person in long-term recovery, not a recovered person. Because in my opinion and my experience, my lived experience, recovery is something I'm going to be working at for the rest of my life. It's something that is always going to be there. There's no graduation for me. It's kind of a beautiful thing. And so this definition looks at recovery as a dynamic, ongoing process. The focus is on strengths and empowerment of the individual. One of the reasons we like the SAMHSA definition is it highlights the multidimensional nature of recovery. Process of change, improving health and wellness, living a self-directed life, seeking meaning and purpose. There's no specific pathways or time requirements listed in this definition. So it's very individualized and it respects that individuality. It's actionable and adaptable. One of the things that we really like about this definition as a whole is it speaks in broad strokes and it offers hope. Wonderful. But we also need to face that there are limitations and criticisms of this definition. And these were just some that I came up with, some that I, found as I was doing my research, but things that I have felt as well. And so important to look at both sides of the coin. So some people view this definition as too broad and undefined. Well, what is recovery if it's all of these things? My degree is in public health and my other one is in sociology. And I have definitely said to people like, what's public health? Well, it's everything. What isn't public health? And sometimes it's like, is that too broad? The definition provided by SAMHSA underplays systemic and structural barriers that impact recovery, racism, socioeconomic status, criminal justice involvement, and more. It fails to illustrate the importance of community support and connection. So several people in the chat, when we said, what does recovery mean to you? What are words that you think of? Support, connection, community. And that is not included in this definition provided by SAMHSA. So thinking about, there are definitely things that work for it and things that maybe don't work for it. So my next question for the audience, what are your thoughts about the definition of recovery provided by SAMHSA, which again is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential? So what are your thoughts about it? Does it resonate with you? In your opinion, what works and what doesn't? Again, you are not being judged on this. You are not being graded. My feelings are not hurt if you're like, I absolutely hate this definition of recovery. But I'm interested to know in your experience, how do you feel about that? What resonates with you? What do you think is left out? Is there anything left out? Somebody put that recovery is definitely ongoing and not a destination. Yeah, I agree. Continuous journey without judgment. Yep, for sure. Very broad, lacks that community focus. Again, yes, which is an important piece that maybe we're missing. It's a personal and a collective journey. That's how I think of it. What else? And maybe you've never thought about, how do I feel about this definition? And that's okay too. You know, continue to think about it after this. Part of my hope is that this gives you some of those thinking points that you can take with you into your work and into your life. Achieve their full potential, feeling conflicted about that. Yes, absolutely. It can bring up feelings of inadequacy about what full potential is, especially in the context of higher ed. I think that is a very poignant argument. And who is deciding what full potential is? Emphasis on outcomes, less about the process. Yep, everyone's journey is different. That is something that we are also going to really drive home today. Doesn't include spirituality. Yeah. So, you know, thinking about, well, this is the definition that our program uses, it's not perfect. And being willing to say, what are the limitations and you know, critiques of it, I think is important in this field of ours. Any other thoughts about the definition? What works, what doesn't, what's missing, what's thriving? All right, well, we will move forward. Thank you so much for your engagement. I appreciate all of you. So SAMHSA also has the 4 pillars of recovery. And again, I want to remind you, I'm not a SAMHSA employee and I am not an expert, but these are all things that we have integrated into our collegiate recovery program. And I think it's important to build that base. So recovery is not just about avoiding return to use or treating top-level symptoms. It's about building a full life that you love. And these are those 4 pillars identified by SAMHSA: health, home, purpose, and community. We will talk further about those in specifics when we get to our program presentation at the second half of this. SAMHSA also has 10 guiding principles of recovery, which really highlights the strength-based approach to recovery, and are created to help guide the development of recovery services. So these principles and the pillars have definitely helped us within our program, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But so if you are not familiar with them, the 10 guiding principles of recovery. Recovery emerges from hope. Must believe that it's possible. I saw that word hope several times in our chat. Recovery is person-driven. Everyone is in charge of their own path. Again, that speaks to the individualized nature of it. There's many pathways to recovery. I wholeheartedly believe that there is no one right way to find recovery and to sustain it. Recovery is holistic. It is about addressing all areas of life. Again, it is not just a, you know, keeping from returning to use. It is building this life that feels fulfilling to you, having that meaning and purpose, self-direction. Peer and ally support is critical to recovery. So in the guiding principles, we are talking about community. Recovery is enhanced through relationships and social networks, which is really like the crux of collegiate recovery programs, is building those peer relationships and supportive social networks. Services for recovery should be culturally based and influenced. Again, not a one-size-fits-all approach. Addressing trauma is important to sustaining recovery. So in my recovery ally training, I always tell students, you know, addiction is not somebody had a sip of alcohol and now they have an addiction. There are so many complex factors at play, the biopsychosocial model. And so there's so many complex factors that need to be addressed and honored. Recovery involves individuals, family, and community strengths and responsibilities, and recovery is based on respect. So in our description, and someone wrote in a really great question that I expanded on maybe too much about spirituality and kind of what we were going to discuss in terms of spirituality. In our webinar description, we included multidimensional aspects of recovery: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And we look at those as a bigger picture. So when we talk about mental, what we are talking about in our collegiate recovery program is looking at that mindset, building resilience, flexibility, and adaptability. Emotional, having that sense of belonging, learning to process and regulate emotions appropriately. Physical, building and maintaining physical health and well-being. And then spiritual, we do have spiritual listed, absolutely, but we are talking about it in a non-dogmatic sense. Really, that plays into that sense of meaning and purpose, which can involve a spiritual element. And so those, I wanted to bring up those 4 because those are ones that I mentioned in our webinar description. So moving beyond abstinence-only models. Again, all pathways are welcome, and we are not here, I am not here to critique abstinence-based programs and services. Recovery is not one size fits all. And I think it's really important for us as a collegiate recovery program to honor that there are myriad pathways. And by honoring that and saying, you know, we accept all pathways, we are increasing accessibility and reducing stigma. So again, recovery is complex and ongoing. Harm reduction saves lives. Reduced use is an important and meaningful treatment outcome for those with substance use disorder, even when complete abstinence isn't in place. And it's very important that we honor that. Stigma reduction is vital for those in active addiction, for those in active recovery, for those supporting, for those impacted. And we respect the individualized nature of recovery. So my opinion as Olivia is that it's not appropriate for me to police someone else's recovery and to decide where they are at on their journey. My job and my role working with students that are in recovery, seeking recovery, supporting recovery, is to allow the autonomy for them to decide what their story is. Recovery is a personal experience, and it is not up to me to police or determine where someone is at. And again, speaking to that, I'm a person in long-term recovery, not a recovered person. That's important to me. That's part of my individualized journey and making sure that that is known. So, okay, so all of this is giving you some great background, I hope, and giving you some things to think about. We're going to talk a little bit about collegiate recovery programs. So what is a collegiate recovery program? Many of you may know, many of you may not. I would encourage you, you don't have to, but put in the chat if you are familiar with collegiate recovery programs or if you work within one or with one. So a collegiate recovery program, a CRP, is a college or university provided program that includes a supportive environment within the campus culture. The Association of Recovery and Higher Education, ARHE, currently has 183 institutional members, and all of these programs look different. Why collegiate recovery? Why is it important to recovery? Why does it work and help people to find all of those connections? Because research demonstrates positive outcomes from peer-led mutual aid groups, which is a cornerstone of the work being done in these programs. And again, I'm not the expert on other programs, but I can tell you I am the expert on our program. And this is at the baseline. The most important thing we do is building connections with students. We always tell our student workers the most important thing you can do is making someone feel welcome, making them feel included, encouraging them to come back. Peer-led support groups enhance positive outlooks, empowerment, hope, and self-efficacy. And someone had put something in the chat about how it can be hard when school is hard or there's a lot of things going on academically, to also be maintaining your recovery and focusing on that. And collegiate recovery programs were born out of the idea that students shouldn't have to choose between recovery and well-being and their pursuit of education. Yeah. So ARHE, again, the Association of Recovery and Higher Education. One of the things that I love about this group is that there is not a, this is how your program has to be. Several years ago, they did use the word abstinence in their mission and vision, and they removed it because they found that that was no longer, this isn't the sole drive of this. Our program at WVU has never operated as an abstinence-only model. We have always operated under the guise of harm reduction matters and is important, and we welcome all pathways, and we welcome people from all walks of recovery life. So it doesn't have to just be substance use disorder. But so one of the things that ARHE does provide is standards and recommendations for creating and sustaining collegiate recovery programs. So per their information, collegiate recovery programs embrace that recovery from substance use disorder is an individualized, intentional, dynamic, and relational process involving sustained efforts to improve wellness. Boy, it seems like I'm repeating myself a lot, right? we are seeing some of these same trends. Individualized process. It's dynamic. It's ongoing. CRPs have dedicated physical space for students in recovery to gather and support one another. This is an important recommendation from ARHE. There has to be a space to go. We are very lucky. Ella and I are both in our physical space right now, which we will talk about in a little bit when Ella gets into the nuts and bolts of our program. But you don't have to have a program that has a sole single occupancy house. You could be a classroom 1 hour a week. That can be a designated space for a collegiate recovery program. You can start small with what you have where you are at. Collegiate recovery programs have within them a community with students who offer each other peer support. Again, we see those the important nature of peer support, of mutual aid support, and very important to know that all of the support that we offer is student-driven, non-clinical mutual aid support. Collegiate recovery programs provide a variety of recovery support and programmatic elements to assist students in maintaining and protecting their recovery. They have paid, qualified, trained, ethical, and dedicated professionals who support students in recovery. So I have one full-time employee and I have several student workers that we employ, and we are very lucky to have that team. A lot of programs don't have that much of a team. CRPs are nonprofit entities, so we are not a fee for service. CRPs are housed within institutions of higher education that confer degrees. They often identify and collaborate with on and off campus partners and stakeholders. This is a very important piece for us because as a small program with limited funding and limited person power, we need those collaborations. And then finally, CRPs actively cultivate an environment of belonging which honors the whole student. So as you can see, and I just had a great conversation with someone who works for the Association of Recovery and Higher Education about the holistic nature of recovery and the services that we offer. So we are going to talk a little bit about our specific program here at WVU, which I titled as a case study in openness and adaptability, because that really sums up what our program has been for the last decade. So this is us. So our mission statement, which we are getting ready to retool because our university has a new president and we are redoing lots of things. But we're also ready to just give some updates, you know, see what we can refresh. Just like looking at that SAMHSA definition of recovery, it's not perfect. But our statement is through activities centered around health, wellness, adventure, community, service, and fun. The West Virginia University Collegiate Recovery Program's goal is to provide the support and resources necessary to help students thrive and develop meaning and connections as they move forward in life. Again, we're hitting on some of those same points, that idea of meaning, that idea of community. Some fun facts about us. So we are the first collegiate recovery program in our state. There are several now. We have many, especially in the southern part of the state. In fact, we have an entire collegiate recovery network, the West Virginia Collegiate Recovery Network. But we were the first 10 years ago, and one thing that I really value is being able to help other programs in our state get up and running. In fall of 2024, we had 568 unique student attendees at our events. We've trained more than 2,000 recovery allies since 2020, and we have a robust programming schedule with everything from recovery meetings to substance-free social events, which Ella will dive into in a little bit. Brief history and origins. As I said, I moved to West Virginia from Los Angeles in 2015. I couldn't find recovery support services for myself, and I needed them because I knew that my recovery only will thrive when I'm in that community, when I'm connecting with others, when I'm giving back some of what has been given to me. And I was very lucky to find a group that was working on building a collegiate recovery program. And that had been years in the making. So in 2016, we were officially recognized as a program in the fall of 2016. Next year's our 10-year anniversary. We started off small, hosting things like sober tailgates. WVU is a big football town. West Virginia does not have any sort of national team, so the Mountaineers are very popular. So we started hosting sober tailgates, doing things like meditation workshops, having occasional drop-in hours. By 2017, we were in our first space. This is our third space we're in now, operating full-time with daily programming. In 2019, our founding director retired. In 2020, I came on board as director. We had COVID changes. We started hosting things virtually, which we still have some virtual options. We started Recovery Ally training. And then since then, we've just been expanding and adjusting, growing every day. So again, what do we mean by recovery? Who do we serve? And this is specific to our program at WVU. It is that definition provided by SAMHSA, we can say it together, a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. The landscape of collegiate recovery is ever evolving, and we have to evolve with it. So we serve students that are in or seeking recovery from substance use disorders, eating disorders, mental health concerns. We are here for students who are exploring moderations, students looking to improve their relationship to substances, to food and body, students impacted by addiction. We know that there's a need for recovery for loved ones. Students interested in the profession. So a lot of my student workers are interested in going into this field professionally, working with individuals in recovery. And then recovery allies. So we really try to serve as many students as possible. We are at an intersection between prevention and harm reduction. And sometimes I get pushback on the prevention work that we do, you know, but for me, as long as I am at the helm, we are going to do that. Because if we can help prevent some initial onset of problematic behaviors or coping skills, we are helping students tenfold. So when I am doing outreach specifically to students that are experiencing loneliness, that have not yet found their community or fit, there is a very specific reason that we are doing that. And we want to help as many people as we can. It is never too early to seek any sort of support. So I am going to turn it over to Ella now to talk more about the specifics of our program.
All right, me again. Hello. So the Association of Recovery in Higher Education, as Olivia said, recommends that we do have a designated place on campus. We recognize that that's not possible for every program, but we are very grateful that we do have a space on campus. Like she said, it is our third house, and we just got here a few months ago. Sorry, the printer is acting up. But right now we are located at Maple House, 724 College Avenue here in Morgantown, West Virginia. We are very close to our downtown campus and student union, a very central place on our campus, which we have recognized and seen some growth in like student attendees and things like that. So that's very awesome. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We really encourage pop-ins, say hello, come hang out with us. That's kind of very open. And we like to advertise that we have free coffee and free snacks for students to come in and say hello. So a little bit more about our space. So we have several designated hangout spots, I like to call them. So the first will be our dining room. You can see the picture there on the left. We like to start our days here. This is like kind of our craft table. And then if students want to work on homework, it has a really nice tabletop to kind of chill, hang out, do some homework, get stuff done together while we're all just surrounded and can have good conversations as well. We have our living room space, which is going to be on the bottom right there. And this is where we do all of our recovery meetings. So we hook it up to the TV. All of our meetings do have a virtual option as well. People can join through Zoom. And so we do all of our meetings there. There's some comfortable couches that we can hang out on. A lot of our students this semester, we're finding they come just to like de-stress, watch some TV, watch some movies together. So like I said, we usually start our days in the dining room, but like throughout the day, we kind of move our way to the living room to be a little bit more comfortable. We do have a student lounge. It is upstairs. We've made it a very sensory-friendly zone, very cozy. If people are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, they can go up there, kind of calm themselves. And students in between classes, or they don't want to go home, but they're tired, they've actually started to, like, we have couches, and they've started to nap in there as well. So it's kind of our nap room, sensory friendly, cozy up there. So nice and private as well. We also have a student office. I'm currently in here now. It's upstairs as well, private space for meetings. Some of our students want to join some Zoom calls, that like personal Zoom calls that they might have. Can do it in here, get some homework done without like some distractions, maybe downstairs with the group, with the rest of the group that is down there. So this is a nice private area as well. Something that we're very excited about within this new house is we have a front porch. So sometimes we like to move our meetings out there, hang out there when the weather is nice. Probably my favorite thing was like when it was winter and started to become a little bit more warm. That weather was just perfect. There was like, the air was so fresh. So we like to hang out there. I mean, just last week we had a student warm up his dinner in our kitchen, and we all went and sat out there with him before he headed to class. So a lot of good areas for students to hang out at here. We also have a mini gym down in our basement. We have like treadmills, ellipticals, a little bicycle thing. If you some students needed to get some energy out, they have that option always. All right. Moving on to some of our programming, I do want to stress that all of our programming is non-clinical. We always want to make it a point to all of our students to know this as well, because if they are looking for something a little bit more professional, more clinical help, we can always direct them in that direction, help them out there. But all of our programming is non-clinical. So the first one I want to talk about is Start Your Day Right. So if you recall, we started our webinar right, but starting your day right is every day at 9 a.m. It's kind of an intention setting practice where we set our intentions for the day. We identify things we're grateful for, things we're proud of ourselves for, give us some good affirmations, just kind of getting the mood right for the day. So this has honestly been, it really does help. I don't know, it's just like, it's just easy things to think about and set a good mindset for the day. Moving along, we have creative activities. Usually they're from like 3 to 5 in our work days. So we have crafternoon and mindful coloring. We have found that students, number one, really love to do coloring and crafts and things like that. But for us student employees, we have found that it's like a natural way to start easy conversations with students. You know, while we are coloring together, doing crafts together, conversations about life just come up, and it's very easy to communicate with and like create these bonds with our students. So I mean, along with getting creative comes like de-stressing, and just kind of separating like school stress, life stress, and just kind of putting that aside for the moment. That's what we have found to be helpful for us students, because it can be very stressful. And we recognize that. So maybe a few things that we do for crafternoon would be making friendship bracelets, paint by numbers, painting coasters. We've painted little rocks. And then like mindful coloring. We like print out coloring sheets that have like maybe some gratitude words or very calming coloring pages. So we really like that one. We have something called Back to School Support. Our program director, Andrew, takes the lead on this. Of course, we help out any chance we can, but this is like a specific time, 3 to 5 on one of the days in the week, where we focus on supporting any student, but I mean, specifically, we are a recovery program, so specifically in the recovery community. Like maybe they want to get back into school or are like just starting school and maybe having some trouble navigating that the system in higher education, because there is a setback between people in recovery and going back to school for college. So we just want to make it as comfortable, support them as much as we can throughout that process. And then we have unplugged gaming, where we put away technology, we distance ourselves from social media, and then we just kind of have a good time playing games together. So things we've done in the past, like board games, card games, all kinds of, we've done like charades, stuff like that. All right, and then we have recovery meetings every single weekday at 1 p.m. So our all recovery, kind of as it states, all pathways of recovery are welcome. When to fixate to that, we do like broad topics in all of our meetings to hit several dimensions of recovery, life challenge. Like what can we control, what can we not control, and like how can we not let that dictate our mood for the day. We have mindful recovery. We do mindfulness meditations and then we discuss them after. We do self-reflecting routines, self-reflecting on our self-care, and it's saying I have unstable connection. Can you all hear me?
We can. You froze for a minute, but we can hear you right now.
Okay, I'm gonna just pick up where I left off then. So things that we do in mindful recovery. I like some videos on YouTube. They're like no more than 4 minutes. So they're really easy to just keep the attention span of some of our students. And they present a metaphor and something, like one of them is an unwanted party guest. So someone is having a party and then their unwanted neighbor shows up. They kick him out. He's unpleasant to all of the guests. They kick him out, he comes back. They kick him out, he comes back. So when they finally just let him be there, they can see he's not as unpleasant as they thought. He's making jokes, he's having a good time, making friends with some of the people there. So it's just like, how can we relate that back to like maybe emotions or thoughts in our mind, sort of thing. That's one of my favorites that I like to do. We have a well-being support group, and this is kind of overall well-being topics. So like maybe filling in the gaps that we don't hit in all recovery or mindful recovery. Things we've done in this one are like learning to be patient with yourself, with the process of change, learning to be patient with the process of recovery, and then like other things like learning to appreciate yourself and all that your body does for you. We do offer our space to our local Narcotics Anonymous community meetings. None of us facilitate these meetings, but we do offer our space to the NA group. And they've been doing it for several years here now. Very happy to be supporting this. And one thing I like to add is that these are open meetings, and here at WVU, we have addiction studies majors and minors. And for a class, they are to attend like an open NA and AA meeting. So students get to be familiar with where our spot is, get to become familiar with maybe more of our program this way. And then they also get to get that class credit, which is really nice. This is actually how I found out about collegiate recovery. I attended one of these meetings when I was in that program because I graduated from that undergrad degree. We have substance-free social events every Thursday night from 5 to 7. They are intended to provide alternatives to students. There is an importance of normative college experiences. So we want to normalize events that do not center themselves around substances or gaining these connections and friendships, like without having to meet at a bar or at a party or something like that. Bringing students together to form these connections here. We have a diverse portfolio of events that speak to different audiences. We want to cater to everyone's interests. And then we have found that these events are great for conversations and connections with students that do come in. We just sit down, hang out with them. It can be very relaxed, very chill. And but because our number one goal is just to keep seeing them coming back. So some of the events that we've done in the past, we've done therapy dog night. So there are several therapy dogs related and like intertwined within the university. And we get some of them to come in for one of our events, and just students can hang out with dogs. We like this event because maybe students are feeling upset or sad that they haven't seen their animals back home in a while. So they get to come hang out with the pups, bring their friends. This is one of our most attended events. So we try to do this one once every semester. We do painting pots and painting and planting flowers for Collegiate Recovery Week. That's in April. And like when the weather starts turning nice, we get some flower pots. Students get to decorate, like paint their own pot and then plant their own flower and get to take it home with them. So that's a really fun event we like to do. We've done tie-dye t-shirts. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have Squishmallow Bingo, which is a huge success every single time we do it. We try to do that one once a semester as well. We just did it a few weeks ago, and we saw over 50 students come and play bingo with us. And of course, they're playing bingo to win a Squishmallow. If you're not familiar, they're little cute little stuffed animals that people go crazy for. We've done yoga on the green and an outdoor movie night on the green. When I say the green, there is like an outdoor space, like a turf, laid out turf space for students to hang out at. So we usually reserve that space for a night, and we've done yoga on there. We've done outdoor movies. So that's always been fun. And then we've done cultural field trips to Pittsburgh. So we actually aren't far from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've gone to like the art museum up there, and we went to the National Aviary, which with all the birds. So that's really cool. I hope to do something like that with this program soon. That'd be fun. All right, so when we're talking in terms of like feedback from students, we can gather those in two different ways. So with our Thursday night events, we ask students to take feedback surveys. This tells us like what kinds of events they want to see and how they heard about the event. We want to like keep having these people back, so we gear our future events to what the majority of students are wanting to participate in based off of the answers on this feedback. And then with the how they heard about us, this is very important for our like outreach that we put into all of these events every single week. Where can we put in more effort if maybe somebody said they heard about us from their RAs. We do a lot of work with our residents, with our resident assistants that are in the dorms. So maybe they heard about it from their RA. So next week, I am going to make sure the RAs know about our event and maybe ask them to promote it to some of their students, things like that. So like what's working, what can we continue to do, and just spread the word as much as possible so we can grow our program. And then we also ask for like qualitative feedback. This just happens naturally through conversations with students. How can we improve our offerings? What can we do to best support you? And then like why they get involved. Knowing like why they're here can maybe help us with some like better support for them when they come back to see us. So I I didn't touch on Loved Ones Coffee Hour or Nourish Community before because I was going to circle back here. So we serve a diverse recovery population. It's not just going to be about substance use. So a few of the meetings that we do have is Loved Ones Coffee Hour. So it is specific to students who have been impacted by someone in active addiction or active recovery. It's a very broad definition because, like we have discussed so far, recovery or the impact of recovery or addiction looks different for everybody. So we just want to include everybody who might be struggling with something like this. So it is held in our student union, very central on campus. We hand out coffee and little treat cards that they're available to go redeem and get a little coffee and then join in on the conversation and the topic of the week. So that one's very fun that we like to do. And the Nourish community, this is for students who are seeking to improve their relationship with food and body. We cover many topics, things including like how to ditch diet culture, building a loving relationship with food and body. We do things like maybe how to deal with comments from friends and family regarding food, body, weight, all of that. So these events we see great attendance and outcomes with those events.
Thanks, Ella. So again, all pathways are welcome here. Ella's going to talk a little bit more about some specific student experiences in a minute. But as at the core of our program, again, really important to know, all pathways are welcome. There are multiple definitions of recovery and there are multiple pathways. What we like about an all pathways approach is it resists a hierarchy of approaches. It respects personal choice and self-direction. And it acknowledges reality. What works for one person may not work for another. This is a quote from the Association of Recovery and Higher Education that says RHE remains open to the evolving landscape and emerging recovery models. In addition, they understand that every college and university is different with its own distinct culture and defining characteristics. Accordingly, there is no single approach in developing and maintaining a collegiate recovery program. I like that it gives us a lot of autonomy to say, like Ella said, we do a lot of feedback and assessment. What works for our students? What are they looking for? What do they need? And let's go towards that. So the SAMHSA pillars of recovery, we talked about those 4 pillars earlier, just briefly. And again, they really are embedded into the work that we do here at WVU. So health, home, purpose, and community. Those are the 4 pillars that SAMHSA puts forth. Health, we want to help students make informed, loving decisions, strive for that overall well-being. Home, providing a recovery supportive, non-judgmental space on campus. Someone put in the chat, which I really appreciated, that this may be someone's first time in a long while of having this sort of feeling like home space, a welcoming, cozy space. And we love that. And we love that students just pop in to see us, for whatever reason. Maybe they want to talk about something, maybe they don't, but they know that they could. Purpose, creating meaningful roles and leadership opportunities. So this is really important to me as someone who employs several student workers. I work with federal work study students. Ella is obviously serving as our graduate assistant. We want our students to also have ways to take on new responsibilities. We have a student organization, Mountaineers for Recovery. It's a great way for students to be of service and to find ways to engage in meaningful activities and work. And that's a really important thing. And also it can be just meaningful activities in terms of what's something that's important to you that you want to get engaged with. And I really try to give our student workers, especially, a lot of autonomy to say, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Like, what do you want to put forth into the world? What do you think would help our students? And then finally, community, sustaining a supportive peer network is what we are doing. So I put together these 2 slides, the next 2 slides, for a different presentation, but I thought they would be a good snippet for here. There were a couple of questions in the chat that I will get to. I wrote down about, but one of them was about funding, which made me think about limitations of our collegiate recovery program and other collegiate recovery programs. One of those limitations is understanding of who we are and what we do and who might benefit from our services and engaging with our program. So I put this together for academic advisors and said, here's some things you may hear students say, and it might strike you to believe, oh, this person might want to hear about collegiate recovery. We are not, our referral process is open. You can tell us, tell someone about us, but there are no mandates to come here. We don't operate in that way. But we often have students just reach out to me or our program coordinator, and we can get them connected, or we encourage people to just stop by. So here's some things that we have heard that says, hey, this person might benefit from our program. I don't feel like I fit in anywhere. All my roommates do is drink, and that isn't my thing. I am a person in recovery. I have a family member who is living with addiction, and it's taking a toll on me. I'm hoping to find more no-cost substance-free things to do on campus. I feel like there's nowhere welcoming for me to go and hang out between classes. My substance use is negatively impacting my relationships and my performance in school. The welcoming space to me, and that speaks again to the home, it has stood with me for probably 9 years ago now. I heard a student very early on in our program say, before this program existed, I would go to class and I would get off campus as quickly as possible because it was triggering and there was nowhere for me to go. And being able to have that space where someone can go, and again, we recognize we are very lucky that we have dedicated space. If you can have a designated meetup, we're all going to be here at noon. We're all going to be eating lunch together. Having those spaces is so important for someone feeling connected to their community and supported by their community. So some other things that we have heard students say, I was hoping to cut back on alcohol consumption, but I don't really feel like I have a problem. Is this a place for me? I'm struggling with body image concerns and breaking the diet cycle, but I want to. I'm dealing with mental health concerns and looking for friends who won't judge me. I'm intimidated by going to events by myself, but I want to meet new people. I want to be able to better support friends in recovery. The reason I put together these slides is to demonstrate how broad it is, the students that come here, and they are all welcome, and we want them all to feel welcome. A sampling of outcomes. Traditional measures don't necessarily demonstrate the impact of collegiate recovery programs. This is well known. Since 2017, we have had 92 graduates. That may not sound like a big number, but that is a huge number for us as a collegiate recovery program. We've awarded 25 plus scholarships in the last few years to help students finance their education. We've trained more than 2,000 recovery allies. These numbers are good. We have great data and metrics, but again, measuring the actual impact is very hard to do, and demonstrating that in this way. And so having some student testimonials, experiences, things like that is very helpful. So Ella is going to talk a little bit about some specific student experiences next. Ella, you are muted.
Got it. Thank you. So all of our, our programs and recovery meetings are open to anyone, like we've said, regardless of pathway to recovery. We value the safe space to connect with others in a non-clinical setting. And students value the safe space to connect with others in a non-clinical setting and share experiences regardless of recovery status. So everyone's welcome. Non-clinical, like I said, our programs are non-clinical, but sometimes that might provide a more comfortable space for some students. So several students have loneliness or stress of all aspects of their life. But they feel comfort within this program and our meetings and just hanging out with us. So we love that we can make this a comfortable, supportive space for them. And then just us as student employees, we build genuine connections with these visitors of ours because sometimes they're in here several times a week. So we get to catch up with them, learn how their week is going, learn more about them, and good friendships are made for sure. So a student of ours was very kind to give a little testimonial about their experience with us. This is a student who visits us frequently, and we have seen so much growth in this individual. They shared things like, I felt very welcome and treated like a friend. I was a freshman with no roommate, and Serenity Place provided me the community I needed. Serenity Place has given me a home away from home where I can go between classes to see friendly faces and talk if I need to. This individual was very shy when they first started coming here. But now we are learning so much about them, whether that is about whether that's the clubs that they're in, other events in Morgantown, or even some of their extracurricular outside of school interests and hobbies. So like, for example, this individual is really interested in filmmaking and is currently in the works of making their own movie. So they actually made a short film last year, and we actually had a little watch party for them where all of us sat down and watched their film, which was very fun. I'm glad we can support them in that way. So when a new student comes in, we want to greet well, this doesn't apply to just new students only. This is anyone that walks through our door. We want to greet them with warm spirit and authenticity. Try to create like a comfortable space for them as much as we can. So for new students, we offer tours. We walk them around the house and give a rundown of kind of what our program is and what we stand for. One thing that we find important is that we never ask why they are here. We allow students to tell their own story on their own timeline, and what they want to share as much, share as little. We are here to support them. So I would kind of like to add some of my personal experience with this program. This is my second year starting. And I learned so much from every student that comes in. Like I said, campus events, student organizations, but most important, like them sharing their own experiences with recovery or wanting to start a journey in recovery. As I said, I am not a person in recovery, so I really respect people that can open up to me and share their own experiences so I can learn more about what it might be like. And like ways that I can help them too. Connections I build with my own coworkers is very strong. We have the ability, we get really close in the way that we can share things that might be going on outside of work with them. And we like maybe not be able to talk about it with our roommates back at our apartments or homes or whatever. So being able to do it here, have a helping hand and a friend here is really good. I'm a big communicator, so I love to learn more, have conversations, to feel I am going into a counseling profession. So this job has been awesome to help me learn to be more open-minded about different people's backgrounds, practice my motivational interviewing skills, kind of like that. We aren't going to tell anybody like how to do what to do, but if they express interest in something, we're gonna like help them figure out what they want to do. And then like, of course, like facilitate group meetings, but most important, just like being able to communicate with people has been a huge help with me going into my program. So a few of our student employees shared some of their thoughts about what this program and its environment, that means to them. They said, every time I come into work, I'm excited to see what the day brings. I feel safe and excited when I come into work. Working at WVU Collegiate Recovery Program has helped me be more open-minded, and I get to show my creativity and love for this field through my work. I wanted to really like expand on that last one. So we let people take control over tasks that promote their well-being. So we have a very creative student who has taken on the role of creating some of our graphic design and event flyers that we go hand out every week. And she even also helps us with our newsletter. So just allowing that space for her to grow and enjoy her work. That's awesome. As well as we have a student who is an advertisement and PR major who runs our social media. So this place allows us to grow as individuals for sure. A current student worker and a previous student worker that I asked to share some experiences shared what they liked about engaging with our student population. So they mentioned, not only did collegiate recovery help me in all the dimensions of wellness, but I saw how it helped others grow in their personal life. It meant the world to me to support or to help students that are seeking support. Being able to help students and those in the recovery community feels very fulfilling, and spreading awareness of our program makes me feel like we are making a difference in our community. Like the more we do outreach, the more people are aware of our name. It really does. You see a difference in our community, and hoping to reduce the stigma that surrounds the community.
Thanks, Ella. I appreciate you. All right, y'all, we got a little bit behind on time, so I'm gonna zip through a few more slides so we can get to some of your questions. We do have lots of campus and community partners. That was a oh, my photo disappeared. Okay, that's fine. We have a well-being wheel at the university, and there are things about that that help us structure our program. And as I've mentioned, we do host Recovery Ally trainings. It's a 1-hour training providing attendees with education to better understand the process of recovery, help confront stigma, learn appropriate language to use, become knowledgeable of resources, and gain tools to support those in or seeking recovery. The key of this is building a recovery supportive campus and community. Again, it's not enough to just say we have this one designated space on campus that respects you and your journey. We need to build a culture. We have had partnerships with academic units, specifically the School of Nursing, that have been incredibly impactful. They have a core class now that one of the requirements is to take our training. And these are young individuals who are going into the medical profession. The amount of impact they can have specifically with their language is immeasurable. And so that has been an incredibly rewarding and powerful partnership. In addition to having a Recovery Ally training, we wanted to make an even bigger impact, so we made a class. Recovery Allyship and Advocacy is a course that I created several years ago, introducing students to theories, concepts, and skills for allyship, advocating for policies supportive of prevention, intervention, and recovery at the community, state, and national levels. It has not been offered in a couple of years, and we are hoping to get it reoffered. So there are a couple of questions in the chat, and again, I will wrap this up. We have painted a very rosy picture, but it is not all rainbows and sunshine. There are barriers and challenges that we face and that plenty of other collegiate recovery programs face. Budgetary constraints and limitations. Someone asked in the chat about the funding mechanism. Long-term sustainability is always a question of ours. This year, just recently, we lost a large state grant, and every collegiate recovery program in the state lost it, which is very hard. And some collegiate recovery programs are solely grant funded. We are a program that has institutional buy-in, which is a very important piece for us. But funding priorities are always a question. We have the smallest budget in all of student life, but we make it work with what we have. A lack of institutional awareness. Again, as I said earlier, that's not just administration or faculty, that's also students. Helping people to understand who we are, who we serve, how someone can get involved is really important. I still give presentations in classes and I'll say, who's heard of collegiate recovery? And there's one person that raises their hand. We are changing that because my students do an incredible amount of consistent outreach, but it's a battle. Stigma and misconceptions surrounding recovery, mental health, loneliness. We have lack of diverse representation. That's something that I think in recovery communities in general is something that always should be being addressed, and looking at the different ways that our population shows up and what they need. There are questions sometimes from leadership and other partners about our incorporation of prevention efforts, and that's something that I will argue for until the day I'm gone. And then again, difficulty assessing and measuring outcomes in traditional ways. It can be challenging to demonstrate our impact in the meaningful ways that perhaps higher ed wants. So I'm going to stop here so that we can get some questions answered. I apologize that we got a little bit behind the ball there, So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat. You can also, we do have an Instagram. You're welcome to follow us and see what sorts of things that we are up to. And we also have a newsletter. If you are working with a collegiate recovery program or a unit or trying to get something started, take our ideas, replicate them. You know, don't reinvent the wheel. We are here to support you. So a question that I saw in the chat was about funding. How are we funded? So again, we have institutional buy-in. We are a part of the Division of Student Life. We are a non-clinical program. We fall under the umbrella of student wellness, but there is a large restructure going on at our university. So things are a little up in the air right now, but we do partner with our counseling center regularly. Someone asked about advocating for space. I would be happy to talk with you more about that. You can get my email and I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. But it is, again, an uphill battle, and none of this happened overnight. We've advocated for all sorts of things. It took us years to get naloxone placed on campus. And now we have naloxone kits located in, I think, almost 50 places on campus. It did not happen overnight. What other questions are going on? Yes, these programs do deserve more funding. They sure do. You know, my thing is always, how can we stretch $1? And we've done really well at doing that, and we will continue to. But if we want to continue serving the population in meaningful ways, there has to be funding behind it. And, you know, budgets are moral contracts. And so where we put our money is what we prioritize, and what we care about. And so that's a very important thing. Thank you so much for your feedback. I'm going to stop sharing this so I can see. Okay. Other questions? I'm so glad you feel inspired. But here's the thing I always tell people, like, again, our program is awesome. I'm biased, but our program is amazing. And it is very hard still to get students involved, to get leadership buy-in, to get funding. We face all of those things too. So when I talk to newer programs or smaller programs, there are programs that are gigantic compared to ours, you know, and we're like, how do you get students? Everyone is facing those same sorts of challenges. Best way to contact me, Sabrina, I'm happy to give you my email. I don't know if my email is attached to this, but I'm happy to give out my email. If I can put that in the chat, and you are welcome to reach out to me. I love talking about collegiate recovery, and you know, it was really important to me to have Ella here as one of our students because this is a student-facing program. You know, what's on the horizon for us is continuing to help other programs, continuing to be student-driven, advocating for our students, advocating for continued growth and development of our program so that we can serve more students. Judith, how do you make people who identify as gay or trans feel welcome? That's a great question. So we partner with our LGBTQ Center a lot. In fact, we are in their former location now. They got moved into the student union, so they have better accessibility, which has been wonderful for them. But we partner with all sorts of different groups and different identity groups, including our LGBTQ Center, our Center for Black Culture, trying to expand those resources. A specific thing that I am passionate about is we know there are high rates of body dysmorphic disorders and eating disorders among the trans population. And so trying to do more outreach to get those services available to say, here's some support if you need it. But like many things, and we didn't get to talk about our partnerships because I ran out of time, we have strong campus and community partnerships. It is very important to us to work with others, in large part because we are a very small program. And so if we can partner up with a larger program, say Campus Rec, it's easier to get visibility. What do you think is the reason for stigma? Is it the language that we use? It's a great question. I think some of it is historical context. I think that when we do our recovery ally trainings, a big portion of that is recovery supportive person first language. We've talked extensively about the nuances of language too, though. But for me, when I'm talking with students, especially these students that are in nursing, about ways that they can serve as a recovery ally in their profession, the biggest thing I highlight is language, is modeling recovery supportive person first language to separate the individual from the condition, because an addiction is what someone has, not what someone is. We don't say someone is a cancer. And so rehumanizing individuals, I think, is a very important piece. But I don't know what the, you know, core causes of stigma are. And yes, we are very strongly non-clinical. I always tell folks, My background is in public health, and collegiate recovery programs as a whole, it's a non-clinical support offering. But I do employ a lot of students who are interested in going into clinical work, and there's still lots of therapeutic elements about what we do. It's not therapy, but it is therapeutic for students to have spaces to go and talk and connect and, you know, feel seen, like someone said, feeling seen for who they are. And not just in a small portion. So I know we're at 3:30. I'm so sorry that we went so against the time. And I'm sorry if we did not get to your questions. I know there were a bunch that rolled through. I tried to write them down quickly. But like I said, I put my email in the chat. I'm happy for folks to reach out. Ella, I'm sure would also be happy if you have students that have questions about, you know, getting things going, about starting student organizations. I can get you connected with her if you have students that are interested in learning more about the sort of work that she does. So I think that's it for us, Shira and Args. Thank you all so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Sorry we got wrapped up on all of our conversation and ran up against time.
No worries. This was an incredible presentation. Thank you so, so much. This was awesome. I learned so much. As a therapist, I specialize in eating disorders, so just want to say a special thank you for like including that in your program. I know that's so often separate. But yeah, this was incredible. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Olivia and Ella, for your presentation. I will be putting the recording on our website, so please stay tuned for that. And then I just wanted to share our next webinar is going to be on the soteria model, a compassionate, non-medicalized approach for psychosis, to be on September 30th. So we sent the announcement out with all the information for registration for that this morning. And we will, you know, continue promoting that. So please join us for that. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.